Welcome to Projects for All. My name's Mike, and today we have Ridgid's R4560 table saw. This is full circle for me. 3 years ago, when I started this channel, this was the first real tool review that I did. It was the Delta version, of course, and it was mine. I'd owned it for a couple years, and I'm going to tell you, before we open this box, I absolutely love this table saw. This is the Ridgid version, naturally, and is it the same as the Delta? Pound for pound, identical in every way? We're going to find out. But in that first video, we didn't get it out of the box. We didn't put it together because it was already together when I started. So the audio is terrible, but that video is still on the channel. You go back and watch it if you want to. This one, we're going to open the box, put it together. It's going to be 2 videos, assembly and calibration, and then we're going to review this table saw and see if it's still the best tool I've ever bought. I really hope that if you wanted one of these table saws, that you saw my post and picked it up for 400 bucks, because that is what this one cost me. The original Delta, which is behind the camera over there in the corner, that cost me about 600 bucks 7 years ago. This one, 7 years later, 200 bucks cheaper. Appreciate that, Home Depot. This is a 15 amp belt-driven induction motor table saw. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're used to job site table saws and have never used one of these, this thing is heaven to use by comparison. It's quiet, it's big and heavy. It is everything I've ever wanted in a table saw without being, 2,500 bucks. 5-year warranty, no lifetime on this one, Ridgid. I don't know what's up with you and lifetime, but it seems that Ridgid does not offer that warranty when it is not a tool that they designed. This is not their tool. This is a Delta. So, what do we got? Quick assembly guide. Let's hope that's true. There's your exploded view. There's so many parts here, I don't even know where to start. We got feet, we got our exactly the same as the Delta miter gauge. These are nice miter gauges. This is all metal, heavy stock, plastic knob. Yeah, this one's got flash on it, feels cheap, but it is the same as the Delta. These handles look the same. The one on the Delta I'll show you is actually cracked in here, and this is coming apart. Metal throat plate. What does that say? Do not fasten. Screws are for leveling only. You guys out there screwing these to table saws? I don't think that's something I would do. Guess we're gonna have to do our fence rails first. This is heavy angle iron. These are your fence rails. Our fence tubing. That looks familiar. We'll do a comparison to the Delta. When we do the walk around, I'm gonna show you various aspects of the Delta and this, and we'll see if they're exactly the same, because I'm just curious, to be honest. What else we got? Kickback paw, blade guard, standard stuff, just a little bit bigger. The old T-square. This looks identical to the Delta. This is an awesome fence. I absolutely love this fence. Here's one of our leg assemblies, 14 gauge tubing. Nice and heavy stuff. There we go. Oh, freaking styrofoam everywhere. Part of our fence rail system. Just locking us up here. Ah, there we go. This is for the right side of your saw. Beautiful. Let's have a look here. We got our wings. These are banded together, but these are our side extensions. They look smaller than I remember, but I'm sure they're the same. That would be the same push stick, if memory serves me. It's got an updated power switch. Looks a little bit different. Let's stick the camera in here so you can have a quick look, because it's going to be hard to show you this stuff. You got a reset button. These metal gears right here. Beautiful metal gears. Those are for your height adjustment. You got the screw coming from this knob on the side here. That screw with tons of lithium grease, that's your bevel. Front of the saw is over here. You got a power switch we have to attach. It's down there. Got metal cover on the side of your blade, and we got our dust chute. Not my color, but plus it's motorcycles. Otherwise, looks good. Looks familiar. It's like an old friend. Well, the first thing we have to do is put our legs on. So we got the one with the caster. That's going to go on this side. This is the front of the saw facing you. What we're going to do We're gonna stick these together, and then we're gonna stick them down in the holes of the saw here. These go together. That's it. Legs are on. I don't know if you guys were around for the R4520, the actual Ridgid design saw this size, contractor saw. That one took me like a week to put together. I mean, to film it at the same time. Obviously for you, it wouldn't take that long. But that was a pain in the neck. This saw is not hard to put together. You put the legs on, the feet, the wheels. We're gonna tip it over and stand it up. We gotta put the rails on it, the fence system, and then the wings for the side, and that's it. It's very simple. So we should have this one together in no time. We'll do the calibrations. Let's grab the feet for this and the wheels, and let's get going. These are our feet, soft rubber, or yeah, it's kind of soft. And they just spin down in these holes here. This will go up and no longer contact the floor, and then it'll sit on these rubber pads. We'll have to adjust the height of these to match the height of this wheel here once we get it flipped over. Your hardware kit's really not as bad as you would think for a saw this size. Itemized. This is the gauge for aligning your fence to the side of your saw. I have the exact same tool sitting in my toolbox over there. A couple Allen keys. This T-handle Allen key here is for adjusting your stops. You go through the top of the table. First step, hardware bag A. We got a bolt and a washer and a nylon nut. That bolt goes right through there. They're part of hardware bag A. You get a bolt that goes right through there. There's 4 of them. Apparently it's harder to do than it looks. There we go. And then the nut just goes on the other side here. We're gonna do 4 of those, 1 for each corner. And then we're gonna tighten that down and our legs are attached. 10 mil on these guys right here. Then the one down through the center there is 13. Righty tighty, Mike. Yeah, I'm already sick of this. Last step under here, we got our wheels. Just go like that. We got 2 axle bolts and 2 nuts. Parts bag B. Maybe 13 mil on these too. Sticky rubber on these. Just make sure they move freely. Rarely do I show you guys how I struggle to flip things over, but we got this on a little hydraulic table. This table saw weighs about 200 pounds. It's basically to flip it on its side like this. That hydraulic table it's sitting on is gonna be a giant help. That's about as far as I venture to go. Not hard at all. I don't know if you're still in the frame, but that wasn't that hard. Go buy yourself one of these tables. I know they're not cheap, but they are worth it. See if we can't not kill my overhead light when we do this. There you go. Doesn't look like much yet, but I cleaned the top of this. It had some shipping grease added to it to keep the rust away. Rust inhibiting grease, so I took a lot of that off just so we're not making a mess. And we're going to adjust the feet next because this is going to drive me crazy. But the real next step is to install the rails, which we'll do in just a second. Adjusting these feet is easy. You flip that up, so now it's sitting on the ground. And these pads here, you can just spin until it contacts the floor, which it is doing right now. It's solid on all 4 corners. Got 6mm set screws on the top of the feet. You can spin down, spin way down. And tighten them up against the bolt for the foot, and that'll hold them in place. All right, so very simple. We're gonna put our rails on. We got 2 short ones. The countersunk holes are gonna go on the front. The 2 heavier ones, the 2 bigger ones will go on the front. The 2 smaller ones will go in the back. The fronts need bolts and nuts. The backs are threaded. So the short one is gonna go on the left side. The long one will go on the right side here, and it'll be the same in the back. You got hardware bag D is what we're gonna need, and this is where our leveling tool comes in handy. I'll show you how to use this, it's easy. These tapered bolts are 3/16 Allen, and then the nuts are 12 mil. Don't worry about lining this up just yet. Once we tighten it down, we'll make sure everything's straight, and I'll show you that too. We're gonna use our included leveling tool. It literally just sits here, and the bottom of this, we're gonna make sure lines up with this all the way across our saw here. So obviously we're gonna have to make some adjustment. I'm gonna use these little welding squares just to hold it upright so I don't have to hold it and adjust this at the same time. It's gonna take a little fiddling around, but I'm happy with that. There's no gap here, there's no gap here. Trust me when I say it is worth the time to get this 100% straight now. So we're gonna put our back rail on. Long side will be on the left side here this time, short side on this side. These holes are threaded, so we have different screws. It should be reasonably simple because we just screw it on here and then we'll line it up and tighten it down. I recommend putting both rails on first. The first time I did this, I had this one pushed too far over and I couldn't get this rail on. It was hitting at the seam here. This does kind of self-balance because it's hanging there. So if it's not contacting the bottom, you can see it moves. You push it up till it stops moving. Tighten it down. We'll recheck it. We'll do this side and then we'll recheck this one to make sure it didn't move because it probably will, just a hair. Now, next up, we got our wings. The wings have 2 holes on the ends of all of them. They are the same, both sides. We're gonna use the same Allen screw and nut that we used on the front here to install these rails. These are just 14 gauge sheet metal that's tacked in the corners. All it is bent and tacked, drilled. 14 gauge would be good for most things, but for these, it's pretty thin, and these tend to be a little bit dipped in the center and high on the edges, and these will be a challenge probably to get level, and there'll be some compromises when we do it. I have a whole video on that. You can watch my first video on that. I'll link it in the description, but we're gonna do it again in this one. 2 holes here, 2 holes in the back, both sides. There are holes drilled in the side of this. You have 3 holes on the side of the cast iron here to screw directly into. These are threaded. So we're gonna do the 2 in the front, the 2 in the back, and then I'm just gonna throw the 3 in there and then we'll level them out. I measured this cast iron top, which is not something I did before. It's roughly 1/4 inch, depending on where you measure it, about 1/4 inch thick here at the lip, and it feels about the same under the tabletop here. There are some support ribs under there, but it's gonna be hard to measure once we put the wings on and it's covered all the way around, so I figured I'd do it right now. So bonus fact for you. The screws for the 3 up under the wings on both sides is in bag C. On the front here, where your 2 rails come together, there is this little support piece. This is gonna go underneath. Got a little Allen-headed screw, and then there's a little nylon nut that goes on the bottom here that attaches it together. There's no washers. I'm doing this last. You could do it first, whatever you like. So we're gonna level this wing out. It is drooping. I have magnets holding it flush with the edge here all the way across and a straight edge so I can see what I'm doing. And we're gonna move the straight edge to the ends, the middle. We're gonna use these little magnets just on the edge here, just to hold it flush. And we're gonna have to be careful it's doing that because this magnet's not a perfect solution, but it's pretty good. We're gonna do our spreader next. Spreaders, 2 holes in the spreader, 2 holes in the rail, front and back. This is the last of the hardware that was in bag D. Nylon nut. This is going to act as material support when your fence is all the way at full rip out here. You can adjust it just a hair maybe if you need to, but it's pretty much fixed. 3/16 and 13mm. We're gonna install our rails and our power box right here is what we're gonna use to attach it. There's gonna be 5. You get 2 on this one and 3 on the long one. And then these 2 holes right here, these 12mm or Allen. Basically what we're gonna do is take our switch. It's got a bracket on the top and these are gonna fit through here. They're gonna go through the angle iron and into our rail. So you're gonna need a box wrench on this one here to get that screwed down. If you Google it, you'll find a pretty cool write-up online where a guy wanted more accuracy, if I remember correctly, out of this saw. So he went and got himself his own 2x2 piece of tubing and made it 1 piece. Technically, if you wanted to do that, you could make this saw as wide as you want to. You could go crazy, really. You would need a piece of angle iron for the back also, but there's 2 holes real close to each other, so they're right on the ends of these. So it holds them together nice and tight. You are going to want to put a level on the outside of this thing and make sure you've got it as straight as humanly possible because this is what your fence is gonna ride on. Any variance in this is going to translate into your fence. Well, there's the threads that came out of both of these holes. They were hard to screw in right from the get-go, all the way down until you really couldn't tell when you were supposed to stop because they were just going in hard. I tapped them for 1/4 20. We'll see if that makes a difference. Otherwise, I'll go a little bigger, but that should be that. That's secure. We're gonna take our straight edge and try and make sure this seam is as straight as we possibly can get it. What'll end up happening is, if it's bowed, that's going to affect our fence when we have our fence mounted to this. So one last check to make sure everything's as straight as we can get it. And I'll tighten all this down and we're good to go. Got our knob installed. This was hanging from it, and it tells you basically not to raise your blade until you bevel it and pull your styrofoam out of there. So we did that already. Now we can raise our blade for the first time. I put a knob on the side one too, and we'll go get our fence and clean this off, and let's check to see if everything's straight. All right, we're gonna start with the riving knife, which, yes, I know is a strange place to start the calibrations, but I already see a problem. And I wish I'd raised this for the first time with the camera turned on, because my reaction, I'm sure, I would have had to censor. Our blade here and our riving knife. What caught my eye is this comically cheap looking lever right here. The one on the Delta is metal. This is a different design. This looks like Happy Meal plastic. I have the camera in line with the blade as best I can get it. We're pretty straight on there. And notice you can see the blade almost all the way down. That's because the riving knife is not blocking your view. The riving knife is over here, way out of adjustment. Not even tightened down. This riving knife is cockeyed, and these bolts are loose. This is total garbage. And what is up with this lever? I mean, this is like the cheapest plastic. At least dyed black, so I can't tell. I mean, it looks like, you ever unpack a toy for a kid, like an RC car or something that's in a cardboard package, and it's got those little plastic wing nuts that you have to twist like a 1/4 turn to release the toy from the packaging? That's this plastic. I mean, those you throw away. This apparently we're gonna keep. The other oddball thing going on here is it tells you need your included Allen key. This is 3/16. Not a chance in hell. Not even close. It's straight out of the instruction manual. 5/32, a little loose. I think 4mm is the best fit here. So these inner bolts here, these are the ones you're supposed to loosen to do the adjustment. These are loose, totally loose out of the box. You can see your riving knife just flopping around. So to do this, you loosen these two. This is your parallel adjustment, or you can just grab your riving knife and move it back and forth and then tighten those bolts down. But we're clearly gonna have to make some adjustments here. These are tight. I can't move these. Moves your riving knife back and forth, basically. All right, I've been messing with this far longer than I would like to admit, but notice you can just barely see the blade behind that riving knife now. The reason this is so straight is, one, because I've been screwing with this for a ridiculous amount of time. The other reason is this dirty riving knife is from the Delta. Here's this Ridgid's riving knife. Doesn't sound flat. It sounds flat on that side. Got a little bit of a curve on this riving knife. It's about the same on both sides for that one. This one is off just a little bit. It's off a little bit on the top here. But that is as straight as this shit's gonna get. This adjustment is not intuitive. It takes a while of fiddling with it before you really get to understand what you're doing. Here's the angle I always forget to check in these videos. Is your fence perpendicular to your table? This side, yes it is. It sure looks perpendicular, except there's a little bit of a gap. As best I can see with my eyes, we have a little dip right in the middle of this. I can see through here ever so slightly. The other side, for my use, I'm inclined to leave it the way it is because this is the side I'm always going to be cutting on. This side, I'll never cut on. You have these two screws here. They're nylon. They're just riding on this tube. To get it to pitch this way, back this side out, let's do half a turn. And this side over here, we'll screw down 1 turn, or half a turn. We're not quite there, but we're close. But I don't want to throw off my other side here. This side, after the adjustment, in the middle of the table there, I show we're pretty straight. Yeah, close enough for me. This fence has a little bit of waviness to it. It is not perfect. This fence is so long, I'm gonna hand hold this. We're at 0. About 8 thou. Back to 0. So I'll show you the adjustment for that. To make that adjustment and straighten this fence out, the back of the fence needs to go that way. So what we're gonna do, fence out of there and flip it around. Here's the pads for the little nylon screws on the other side for perpendicular. Adjusting it parallel is these pads here. There's a bar just tacked to this stock, and there's a set screw on the other side. So you can adjust these pads in and out. That set screw is here, and you have to pull the fence, obviously, out of the slot and off the table to do this. I'm gonna go half a turn on this, screw this down. It's just hand tight, no problem. We went half a turn, I'm gonna throw it back in there, and let's see if we made an improvement. And we made it worse. Back that off half a turn. I'm going to turn the other side in half a turn. By slowly adjusting these set screws down in here, you just lift this up, adjust that set screw. I go in on one side, out on the other. Very small adjustments. Here's where we ended up. Good enough for me. Honestly, 5 or 6 thou was good enough for me, but that's damn near perfect. I'll tell you, I've never used the stops on this saw, and I don't trust them. This is the adjustment for 90. This is the adjustment for 45, right in the table, which is real nice. Your included T-handle fits in there. However, this saw, this Ridgid, at 90 stops dead. At 45 is real spongy and progressive. It doesn't stop. So I'd never trust it because I feel like I'm breaking it if I try and get it all the way to the end, and if I stop short, who knows where I'm at. So I always just use the old Wixie gauge, which I recommend you buy. I don't know how much these cost now. This one's getting kind of old, but I have this at 90 and 92.2. This saw is seriously adjusted like crap from the factory. Not impressed at all. The instructions do not really tell you which direction to turn that for what direction you want to be, but they do tell you that you have to adjust it back off the stop. And actually, why don't we just set it for 90, and I'll see if this screw will turn until the screw stop. Maybe we can just set our stop like that. Let's try righty-tighty. No idea. It's getting tight. Let's try and back it off. And stop, see if it stops at 90. Yeah, see, spongy crap. And we went past. I'm gonna tell you, don't trust the stops on this. It's sad, I know you want to, because that would be a nice feature if it just stopped dead at 90, but it's not a job site saw with a cam on the end where you just slide it up against the cam. I can trust that more than I trust this. Honestly, I don't mind getting the Wixie gauge out and just setting it where I want it. So that's what I recommend you do also. Since we're here, let's set it for 45. Let's see where the stop is, just for fun. I'm gonna bet it's off by a mile. Don't forget that gauge was already zeroed. 43.4, yeah, garbage. Forgot how hard this saw is to film because it's so much bigger than a job site saw, and this is all the way back here. You can just watch the dial there, and I'll pull the camera back so you can see what's going on, but I had the master plate installed horizontally, which is 10 inches, and we were off by about 33 to 35 thou. This is 6-inch span, and we are off by 18 thou. And we're on this miter slot because that miter slot I already checked, and it is the same. I just wanted to make sure. So we got a plastic riving knife lever. We got a riving knife that was loose and a mess. We have a blade that is not parallel to either miter slot. What do we do with this freaking thing? I have actually never taken this apart and adjusted it, and my delta is off now too. I know it is. Here is the book for the delta that I told a viewer I didn't know where it was earlier today, and yep, some digging. They go on about how important this adjustment is, and that you need to check it, but offer absolutely zero solution. That is the Delta. That always pissed me off. That's my original book from my saw. Here's the Ridgid. Pretty much almost word for word the same, except please contact Ridgid customer support. We're gonna end this video here because what I think we should do is call Ridgid, because I don't need this saw. I mean, this is one of 12 saws I own. Also, I have the same saw sitting like 15 feet that way. So I say we call Ridgid and say, hey, this saw is 4 months old. I'm finally putting it together, and here's what we got. We're gonna do this saw, full walk around, cutting, big dado, the whole 9 yards. And I'll have the result in that video. And I'll let you guys know how my Ridgid customer service experience went. So how do we end up here? Not so good, I think. I'm actually really surprised. Everything on this saw needed an adjustment straight out of the box. The fence, the blade, everything. I would have told you the stops were crap right off the bat. The stops on my Delta are exactly the same as this. It's crap. Don't trust the stops. It's sad because it looks cool. It's drilled right into the table like it's professionally done, but no, it's junk. So we got the fence straight. The riving knife's flopping around, and the plastic lever, that kind of pisses me off. That is the only thing I can tell so far is different on the Ridgid versus the Delta. The Delta has a little different design and a metal riving knife lever. This looks like really cheap plastic, which is sad. I got the fence straight, I got the riving knife straight, the stops we're gonna ignore. We've dealt with Bosch, we've dealt with Evolution, now we're gonna deal with Ridgid. Let's find out how they do. I have no idea. I live in a west suburb of Chicago. I'm in an urban area. Hopefully I don't have to go very far if this is going to service. One of the advantages of reviewing table saws and owning like a dozen of them is I don't need this one. So we're gonna send it. If it takes them forever, I'll let you know. It would be really nice if I could get the actual official procedure for adjusting this myself, because the Delta needs it too, and that thing's been out of warranty for years. So I'm gonna have to do that regardless. And I would just assume do it myself anyway, show you guys. So we're calling Ridgid. When we do the walk around and full review of this table saw, once all this stuff's resolved, I'll go over my experience with this. You guys hit me up in the comments. Tell me, have you dealt with Ridgid's customer service, and what do you think? And what am I in for? Thanks for watching my video. I will see you in the next one.